Okay, day 350. It's incredible that we're here, but also not surprised because we built some good habits. So today we just went browsing, and yesterday I think we were up in the northeast side of Birmingham. We just scrolled down a little bit today and found this property, 100 South 80th Street, Birmingham, Alabama, 35206. And this part just came on to Redfin 3 days ago. So fresh paint, so you don't need to do that. Newly stained hardwood floors. New roof. Foundation work. Okay, this property looks pretty good. I mean, I don't see any carpet or anything like that. Yeah, this property looks pretty new. Don't need to do anything there. It looks like they probably refinish there. Maybe just put a little bit of money in case the floor vents need to get replaced. Got some tile ceilings here. There's this little wet spot right here that I'm a little concerned about. So you probably just want to make sure that there's something set aside for the roof. Basement looks as is. I mean, can the outdoor look a little bit better? Probably do a little pressure wash or something like that. Okay, so that's this property, 100 South 80th Street, 170 grand. Let's first try to figure out what county this is in. Again, if you just do a control find on county, you see that it's in Jefferson County. So the first thing I need to do is Google HUD FMR. FMR stands for fair market rents. I'm going to click on the first link. I'm going to come down here to access small area FMRs because I'm looking for the rent ceiling right now. Alabama, county. Then once you come here, you can look for 35206 and you can see by bedroom count, by zip code, what the rent ceiling is. So it's really good to, as you kind of look through this list, you're like, okay, 35205, why is the rent so much higher? 35209, why's the rent so much higher? As you start to see and pick apart these numbers, right, that starts to help you feel a little bit more comfortable about your area knowledge. Okay, 35206, 1600, I believe, right? 1700 and 1500. That's my rent ceiling. Okay, 35206, 35206. And then now that I got my rent ceiling, right, because this $1,700 typically includes utilities. So if you don't provide utilities, you got to back it out. But you also got to have a reasonable rent. And in order for you to have a reasonable rent, it has to be compared against the market rent. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this address. We're going to go to affordablehousing.com. We're going to go to the owner section, go to the market rent estimator. That'll bring you to this page right here. And you put in your address and your bedroom count. And now the most important number is going to be this number on the bottom right where it says for 25 units within a 2.7 mile radius, average rent is $1,400. And that's been in line with a lot of 4-bedroom homes that I've been seeing. So I'm starting to have a lot of confidence that $1,400 is sort of my floor for a 4-bedroom rental in this market. Now, when I go here, so I'm going to use 1,400. Again, I'm using 1,400, not 1,700, because the 1,700 is the rent ceiling, right? There's a test. It's called the rent reasonableness test. And when you go to the Housing Choice Voucher Program Guidebook, HCV is what stands for Housing Choice Voucher. This is Housing Choice Vouchers was previously known as the Section 8 voucher. They rebranded it from Section 8 to Housing Choice Voucher specifically of all the bad negative connotations or misconceptions or misunderstandings, whatever that may be, right? That's what they rebranded it. But if you go to Section 2.2, it says that in conducting rent reasonableness, the PHA must determine whether the rent to the owner is a reasonable rent in comparison to rent for other comparable unassisted units. This essentially means that you can't charge more rent to someone simply because they are a voucher holder, right? For all the obvious reasons. And now, obviously, the size and unit type matters, but typically you don't see 4-bedroom apartments being built in this area. So it's very likely that these 25 units are all single-family homes. Hence why I'm willing to bet that the 1,400 that I'm using for the underwriting is accurate, okay? Now you have nicer finishes, more square footage, more amenities. You can charge more, maybe a little bit more, like 25, 50 bucks, but they're not going to give you extra $100, $200 more. So just be careful with your assumptions. I don't want you to overestimate your revenue and then all of a sudden find out that you're not going to make any money on this deal. And when there's no margins, there is no mission. All right. So for asking price, $170,000, 170. For our rehab right here, I'm going to go to my rehab calculator. I'm going to replace 2 of the toilets with high pressure flush toilets just because I don't have any issues with clogged toilets at my properties whenever I have these high pressure flush toilets. So I'm going to keep it that way, right? Probably cost you $200 for someone to go out there to fix a clogged toilet. And I'd rather much get ahead of the process now. I got $500 in row 46 for set aside for landscaping. And I got $1,500 for the roof repair. So that gives me a total rehab of about $3,500. I'm just going to leave that in there for contingency in case I find things that pop up, right? Something always pops up. So just set aside some money. I don't think it'll ever be zero. For taxes, let's scroll down. Property taxes on this property is $145 a month. That's pretty high, but let's put that in. And the homeowner insurance is $132. So I'm going to equals 132 times 1.2. I'm multiplying by 1.2 because I'm adding a 20% premium, right? Hence multiplying by 1.2. And that's because I'm assuming that this 132 estimate is probably related to someone that's living in the property as a primary residence. So obviously before you close on a property, you should get an insurance quote and see whether that affects your numbers dramatically, especially if your state such as Texas or Florida, where insurance is going up significantly every single year, and make sure that you got all your coverage for wind, fire, flood. But again, I'm not an insurance agent, so this is not insurance advice. Just do your due diligence, right? Then I got 10% set aside for my maintenance. So 10% of my rents every single month is put into a bank account that anticipates some of your big replacement costs. And these include such as your roof, your water heater, your HVAC. I just got a $15,000 bill to replace a roof. And then I just spent about $3,500 just on parts to replace inside the condenser for our AC units, right? These are all real repairs. If you don't set aside this money every single month, let's say if you don't set aside $140 every single month for 100 months, and you get that $14,000 bill to replace your roof in 100 months, well, guess what? You might have been overestimating your profitability because you underestimate your expense. So don't lie to yourself. Please be realistic. Please understand there's other costs and big replacement items coming down the road. All right. We got $140 for our property management, which is 10%, and another 5% for vacancy because someone always moves out, right? So as we move forward to the right side, in F19, I got a 25% down payment. So my down payment is going to equals to B4, which is my asking price, multiplied by my down payment percentage in F19. And that's how you get to a 42.5K down payment. I'm setting aside 2.5% for closing costs, and I got $3,500 for renovations. All right. So now my financing amount in K6 is going to be 127.5K. I'm going to underwrite this deal at 8%. Really, right now, they're in the high 7s for DSCR loans based on me talking to a lender yesterday. I'll just leave that as there. And now let's go through some of the scenarios. So if I rent this property out as a 4-bedroom for $1,400, what is my cash and cash return? I'll be negative $189 a month. And that's a negative 4.5% return on my capital, assuming I bought this product for $170,000. And that's assuming rehab is $3,500 and everything else is the same. Now, how can I turn this into a deal, right? Obviously, this is not investment advice. We're not still saying any investments on this call. Just showing you how to work on how to adjust the levers, adjust the inputs in Excel to turn this property into a 10% return. Let's just say that's your target. So if I go to $85,000, now it's a 12 point. What do I go? $95,000. 92. There you go. And $92,000, this now becomes a 10% return. And that's assuming everything else held constant, right? From rents and repairs and expenses. Because now I'm cash flowing $240 a month, but I'm buying this property at $92,000. Now, how realistic is that? Probably not that realistic because someone's going to have to come down half the price. But if this property stays on the market for, let's say, 100 days, that might work. All right, here's another way to think about it. What if you had a lender, a private money lender that says, hey, I'll lend you most of your down payment, right? So now you only had to put 5% down. And you're going to get a secondary loan. So now I'm going to keep this at $90,000. Let's say I bump this up to 120 grand. Let's go 150. 150 grand. And I'm also going to get a private loan for 20 grand at 10% interest rate. Amortize over 30 years, 12 payments a year, start date 7/1. Great. It's going to be due in 10 years. So now my finance amount is going to equal to my asking price minus my down payment of $7,500 minus my principal on the private lender. So maybe I'm borrowed from my mom, let's say. So now I'm borrowing $122,500 at 8%. I'm borrowing 20 grand at 10%. And this does not work. Even though I lower my down payment, it doesn't work. So I'm just messing around with the numbers, right? Trying to figure out how do I turn this deal into a deal. And it doesn't work anymore because this 10% interest is way too costly. If I lower my interest rate to 7%, it's still not going to get me there unless I go back to 92 grand. Once I go back to 92 grand, even though my purchase price is the same, right? My down payment is a lot lower at 5%, but because I'm borrowing $20,000 from somebody else, now my cash and cash returns now all of a sudden 14.2%. So see what happened, right? I didn't use as much money out of my own pocket. I borrowed it from somebody else at a higher interest rate because they're going to be in second position. They're going to be expected to be reasonably compensated for the risk. So that's another way for you to think about, like, how do you make this a deal, right? Maybe it's 5% down because you don't have enough capital, but then all of a sudden you were able to find a family friend that was going to give you 20 grand. It's the same concept, right? You can have multiple loans on a property, or you can take out a personal loan, right? Again, not investment advice. So let's go back to here, 25,000. Go back to 25%. This is still the same. Excellent. So now I'm back to, let's say I drop my interest rate now, that's 7%. At 92 grand, I'm at 12% return. So now I'm willing to pay more for this property at 99,000 because now I'm selling 9.9%, right? Simply by lowering my interest rate from 8 to 7% while keeping everything else the same, including the rehab, I'm now willing to pay $7,000 more for the home, okay? And that's the interest rate effect. So pay close attention to what happens in the market over the next week or two. Right? If the spreads on the yield between the 10-year yield and your mortgage rates get skinnier, right? This is what you care about. You care about the spread between the 10-year treasury bond yield and the interest rates, right? The 10-year yield is faster than what the Federal Reserve does, right? The Federal Reserve is trying to catch up to the bond market. Just because the Federal Reserve say, I'm going to cut a quarter point, doesn't mean that the bond market hasn't even taken that into account. I mean, the bond market sometimes just price in these future cuts, right? If you can say, let's say the Federal Reserve comes on and say, hey, I'm going to cut a quarter point this meeting or a half a point, but we're going to get really aggressive. We're going to get the federal funds rate a lot lower. That's what's going to drive mortgage rates lower, right? The spread has gone much, much better already in the last week. So pay close attention to it. Talk to your mortgage lenders. I know a few folks. If you really want me to refer you to folks, just DM me on Instagram at InvestmentKenny, and I can give you some contacts. But pay close attention to the spreads, all right? All right, so my goal is for you to copy my homework. Please go to affordablehousing.io, put in your name, your email, your phone number. That's the fastest way to get a copy of the spreadsheet. I didn't make the spreadsheet from scratch. So this is how I was able to consolidate, make my own versions, and ultimately share the spreadsheet out with all of you because this is the way I analyze deals a lot faster, right? You don't need to create a spreadsheet from scratch. Don't spend that time. So this way you can avoid burning out. And my goal is that for you to create your own YouTube channel, right? Put it on your own YouTube Analyze all these deals. And when a partner asks you why you think this is the deal, you can say, hey, I know this is a deal because I looked at deals for the past 350 days and they were all not deals. All right, stay consistent with me, everybody. Have an amazing Saturday. Hope you all spent some quality time with your family and friends today. I'll be back again tomorrow for day 351. Have a good one, everybody.